From Bikansner says Sim is completely right on the Romero situation. One of the core issues with this fan base is they often go the easy route by scapegoating individuals that go against the tide, like Ange or Romero, instead of actually standing up and pointing the ones that are the top of the structure and responsible of the decisions.
I think that is true to a certain extent about pointing the fingers of where they really need to be pointed at. And look, Romero ain't the crux of the problem. Like I said yesterday, Ange wasn't the crux of the problem. Frank weren't the crux of the problem. The crux of the problem are the people that run this football club, and they're the ones responsible for everything, all the negativity that seeps in, the mentality of the club and all that kind of stuff. But the only thing I was saying yesterday is that Romero, as club captain, should be trying, or to rise above these kind of things and hold himself to a different standard, like a Sonny did last season.
Do you think Tudor should strip him of the captaincy?
I think no. I don't know what he should do, to be honest. I don't know what he should do. I think he'll keep Romero as captain.
I can't see his first action being stripping Romero of the captaincy. That'd be a crazy move.
An interim just needs to, get everyone on side. And if you strip Romero of the captaincy straight away, that's already like causing a fracture. So
yeah, you think that would be a popular move in the dressing room? I doubt it. But yeah, look, my only point is, as much as I think Romero should have been held accountable for his actions, like fining him and dropping him, in terms of if it was true, he was coming late and stuff, 100%. But I think when it comes to all these things that we're talking about, players' behaviour, I think we have to, don't get me wrong, it's not good, and I don't like my captain doing that, and it's unacceptable. But instead of blaming him and focusing on that in terms of why we're in the situation we are, we should be looking at what was really causing all these things to happen. And I think, as I've said, at Argentina, he's like a different person. So why is it different here? Is it because of him, or is it because of the environment? So I think the key is changing the environment. And that, for example, remember Kane, when he wanted to leave, and he was awful for 3 months. He couldn't hit a barn door. He seemed like he didn't want to be here. And Peter, do you remember on the channel, people just sell him. He doesn't want to be here. Drop him. They were saying drop him. They drop him for the next game. He shouldn't be playing. And I was saying, do you really think he is the problem? Do you really think that, do you think the solution to Kane playing the way he is dropping him and taking him out of the team? Or is there a deep-rooted issue here, something deeper? And then we changed Nuno. We got Conte, and he was like a new guy. And that's kind of what I'm saying. We need to change the environment. That's the solution, rather than taking Romero out. It's changing the environment. That's the solution.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point. And but I still think that shouldn't take away the criticism for Romero for the way, for the unprofessionalism that he's been showing as club captain. So
that's fine, but you could also say, with Kane, he was dog shit. He dropped his standards for 3 months.
Yeah, and he should have been, and he was rightly criticised at the time as well.
Right, and I agree with that. And fine, you can criticise him. But I think when people are talking about, just get rid, sell him, drop him, or look, maybe he should have been dropped for a game or something. But when it comes to all these things about blaming it on Romero, he bad captain, we don't want players like that. For me, that's not the solution to the problem.
Yeah, fine. Maybe selling's not the solution, but definitely some repercussions or disciplinary action should have been the repercussions.
I agree with that, and that was a big failing of the club and Frank to. That's probably part of the reason.
Because we heard that Romero gets treated differently behind closed doors, so he should act differently as well.
Yeah, he should be fined, and he should have. There should have been laid a market down. He should have been made an example of.
Yeah.
As look, this is our club captain. Those are the standards you've got to set, and we didn't do that. So that was a failing on Frank when it comes to his leadership.
Agreed.
So. Kerno Chris, Vina and Lange are more worried about getting egg on their faces than doing the right thing for the club. Disgraceful behaviour. They should be out the door as well.
Yeah, you know what? If we save ourselves as well, the narrative is going to be Lange and Vina saved us, because it's just ridiculous. The stuff about them getting their toes all walked over was by Paul O'Keefe. It's not even in the mainstream media. The stuff about Igor Tudor, Fabio wanting him 4 months ago is not in the mainstream media. So from the mainstream media, the narrative is going to be like Lange and Vinay have saved us.
Yeah. Fabio saved us. If Tudor keeps us up, Fabio saved us. We should have listened. We should have heeded the warnings that Fabio gave us many, many months ago. And it's basically taken us too long to realise that he was right and we're idiots. And now he's gone. And it's actually such a mess that the fact that everything that he wanted, we're now doing, and he's now out the door by the time we're doing it. It's the whole thing's ridiculous. We know that Vinay and Lange have been undermined by the hierarchy as well, because they've basically forced them to sack him, or they've sacked him and basically gone against their recommendations. I don't understand how their jobs are tenable at this point. I really don't get it. Maybe it's a case of we just need to stabilise between now and the end of the season, and then once we're safe, then those two are gone, and that's it. We can move on from this, because I don't understand how they can trust their judgment if they're undermining their decisions. Yeah. But I also think on the flip side, they made the right decision to undermine them.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think once the summer comes, I know it's another summer of change and all that kind of stuff, but we're going to embark on a new long-term project, hopefully under Pochettino, and I think that's a great opportunity to go in a different way with the sporting director.
The problem is, though, the thing is, they've made the right call. I agree, but they've also stepped in and made a footballing decision when we don't want them to be doing that. So it's kind of like if they've felt emboldened to do it because they've made such a pig's ear of appointing, Vinay and Lange. Are they going to feel that ever again if things are going wrong down the line?
I think the way they played this out, they could have stepped in a lot earlier than they did. Mm-hmm. We know that there was fracture in the boardroom regarding the manager situation, and if they were dying to make that football decision, they would have stepped in a while back. So I think they made the right call as well. Not the right call because we all wanted him sacked earlier, but they made the right decision in terms of trusting the so-called football opinions and football voices in the boardroom of Lang and Vinay, even though it's not ones that we trust, but they're the ones in the job. So they're the ones that need to be trusted with the decision. So they trusted it as long as possible, really. Mm. And as soon as, it came to like proper alarm bells, then they stepped in. And I think that was the right way to go about it.
But at the end of the day, the objective fact is they did make a footballing decision.
Yeah.
And that is also a scary thought, because that's something we've been railing against, those kind of people making the footballing decisions.
Yeah.
And it was the football people who are basically ignored, and that's not what we want. But we also want good footballing people making those decisions, and clearly Vinay and Lange aren't that.
The non-football people made better footballing decisions than the football people.
Yeah.
How scary is that?
But how can we prevent that happening in the future?
Just by getting better people in, yeah.
But do you think that will stop them making a footballing decision down the line?
I think if they have full trust in those people, then yes. But I think the trust has been lost in the people that we currently have.
Yeah, I agree. So James Gaffney says, if senior players were telling the hierarchy 4 months ago to get rid, that on its own means the players don't have any faith in the manager. Someone in the hierarchy wants us to go down if the players' thoughts on Frank 4 months ago and continued to recently fell on deaf ears. Crazy.
I think there's different things going on here in the boardroom when you talk about Vinay and Lange. Like, Vinay has obviously got the Arteta thing to look back on, and he's like, all right, well, I've got proven track record of giving a manager time and it turning around. Obviously, it never got as bad as what Frank did at Tottenham, and definitely not as quickly. So it was just bullshit in the first and foremost. Vinay think like that. You can't just think like any manager can turn it around. Like, just because you gave Arteta time and it turned around and they turned into one of England's best teams, it doesn't mean that's going to happen under any manager. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a flawed process. First and foremost,
ridiculous process when you think about it. Just any manager can turn it around if given enough time. That's not realistic at all, is it?
Exactly. And Johan Lang, I mean, he's worked with Frank in the past. They've known each other for a long time. They're obviously mates. So I think he found it hard to sack his mate, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it led to this situation where there was just ulterior motives, it felt like. And also, on back of that, I feel like they didn't want... I think, as one of the first commenters says, they didn't want to have egg on their face. Like, they're the ones who probably pushed a lot for this appointment. Obviously, Vinay did this whole thing about when he was signed about how it was 10-point process and 30 candidates, and they land on him. So how bad it looks on them once he gets sacked that this was the guy they chose. So they wanted to basically hope he turned it around, because either way, whether they sacked him or kept him, like the fact that it's gone on this long, and they allowed it to go on this long, it kind of just looks bad on them either way now, whether they sack him or keep him, because it was their choice to hire him. So they wanted to just hope beyond all hope he turned it around, because if he turns it around, that's the only way they come out of this scot-free. At the end of the day, he just wasn't turning it around.
The thing is with hiring him in the first place, obviously it was a bad move to hire him, but obviously a lot of fans got on board. I got on board. You never thought it would be as bad as it actually was. So
I understood it, yeah.
Yeah, so everyone kind of understood it to a certain extent, and a lot of people were excited about it. So actually hiring him, don't think was the biggest kind of evidence of their incapabilities and their lack of judgment. But I think keeping him for as long as they did.
I disagree, actually, because as much as fans were on board, and look, as fans, I'm not saying fans are stupid or anything, but these clubs have billions and billions of pounds at their disposal. They have probably data and analysis that the common fan isn't privy to. They have all these different metrics. Like, obviously we have like XG and blah blah blah, all these different things, but they should have the best in class in terms of analysts and people who are understanding of football and all these different things. And now the fact for me that, with all that being said, they have millions and millions of pounds of their disposal, and they looked at Thomas Frank and his time at Brentford and decided he plays attractive front-footed football, and they appointed him loosely on that basis as one of the pointers. For me, that's a massive failing. That's a massive failing.
I'm not saying
that even beforehand, it's a failing that he got through the process, and that was a box that was ticked, in my opinion.
Look, that's true, but I'm not saying it's not a flawed process, and I'm not saying it was a good decision. But what I am saying is that the decision to stick with him was far worse than the decision to hire him. That's what I'm saying.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying they shouldn't get off scot-free for any understanding of hiring him in the first place.
No, I'm not saying that.
It was already a bad decision.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying that the decision to stick with him was far more incompetent than the decision to hire him.
Absolutely. They should have seen. There should have been an analyst there saying he's playing very similar to what he's playing at Brentford. You know, he's just playing long ball. It's very much percentage football. This is what we can expect to see going forward. After that 4-1 defeat to Arsenal and that 1-0 defeat to Chelsea, or the 3-0 defeat to Forest, those were 3 ultimately sackable offences immediately there. Someone should have been saying, this isn't going to change. This is how he plays.
As soon as that kind of Arsenal thing came out, or the players had to tell him to shut up for keep mentioning Arsenal, should have been out the door quicker than anything.
Chief and Chips says, Ben, hats off to you for apologising to Ange. The truth came out. The club did not want to support him and the project. The board rejects the darers to do concept. They are not risk takers. The club will never be successful until ENIC are gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. It really is hard to disagree with that, and we come back to it every year, and I think every year we kind of see the team on the pitch and the projects getting worse and worse and shorter, and I think every year as well we kind of get swayed off it, and a lot of people start pointing fingers at the managers and this and that, and that's why I said when Frank was sacked, like, I wasn't angry at Frank. It's all a culmination of decisions that this board take time and time again. And for various different reasons, the projects fail every time. And it's always back on the ownership every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is obviously definitely a problem when it comes to, they're not willing to risk any sort of profit or anything, are they? When it comes to taking a risk in the transfer market or breaking that wage structure. They're very regimented in that, and we've missed out on so many players because of it. And now we're sitting in the situation that we're sitting at, where there seems to be no ambition in this football club as much as they portray it.
And look, I think the Lewis family were probably not willing to step in on any toes, but as soon as it became a genuine threat of relegation, when it looked like we were going to go 3 points above the relegation zone, that's when they had to step in, because that's when their pockets was going to get hit the most. And as well, that last game with the empty stadiums and you know, we've spoken about it to death, but you know, they were willing to ride it out if relegation was not a serious threat.
Deadly Dizzle says, this channel pushed and supported narratives about Ange not being fit for purpose and wanted him sacked, supported by numpties like Bagel, Stel and Danny. Now we're here giving him credit and saying he wasn't the problem when it was so obvious to anyone with common sense. With the exception of Sim, the participants on this channel could do with a long look in the mirror.
Didn't we do that yesterday? Didn't we go through this yesterday?
It's just a comment.
Didn't we go through that? Of course you picked out this comment. Of course you picked out this comment. What are some of the replies on that comment saying?
That's what I want to know. There's 37 replies in that comment.
Exactly, that's what I
haven't looked, actually.
But look, I think the main thing is, if you think you've made a mistake, to cop it up, as Ange would say.
Cop it.
To cop it and own up to it and speak about it. And that's what I did yesterday.
Did you take a long look in the mirror?
Had a long, hard look at myself, man, because that's what I said. Because I said, like, why did I sit there and consistently blame managers? Why am I sitting here lambasting Frank all season? Why am I sitting there last year going mad at Ange Postecoglou? Like, why am I going in so hard on managers when I know they're not the crux of the issue here? We should always be focused on the ownership. That's what it should be.
Robert says, Sim was always right, stuck by Ange, but it's always shoot the messenger. And Sean says, there were times when Daigle, Stel and Ben were belligerent towards Sim, mocking him for his stance and values. I hope they apologise to Sim.
I ain't apologising to Sim.
I apologise for nothing. They've had their apologies, don't worry. The apologies to Ange is enough. I don't need an apology to me.
I'll apologise to Ange, never apologise to Sim.
That's enough for me. That's enough for me. Ange is the main one. Running Guy says, thank you for apologising, Ben. Sim, you're my man. You recruit like a lower league mid-tier club alongside also mindset of winning silverware. We can't even talk about it. Would other clubs get ridiculed if they planned for silverware and had conversations about it? How can we win if we can't even talk about it? It happens by accident. Also, taking risks is part of winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, because Ange was saying they were scared to even talk about silverware behind the scenes. Which is mad.
Like, you run a football club and you can't talk about silverware.
No, don't say that. You're jinxing us. Like, they probably blamed Ange. They thought Ange was jinxing them when he said, I always win in my second season. They're probably like, oh, this guy's jinxing us. Now we're never going to win.
What is this guy doing?
Yeah, what's this guy
is that
doing?
Like panic stations behind the scenes?
Oh my God, he said it. He actually said it. We're never going to win again. God. Marco Kumo says, at some point, I'll get replaced by John the Pragmatist and you can all be happy and revel in it. Ange nailed it. And that's exactly what happened. He called it spot on.
Yep. We got John the Pragmatist and he was out.
He was out very quickly.
He was out very quickly. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week on the overlap, because he's got a longer stint on it. Obviously, he was drafted in like in short term just to get his reaction to the Frank news and everything like that. And obviously he said what he said. But I think more fire is going to come next week. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure he's going to talk about Forest as well and everything. And last one. It still baffles me the disrespect some fans show towards Ange. He put his neck and reputation on the line to get rid of the Spursy tag and drag this club over the line to win its first trophy in years he embodied to dare us to do, and yet some fans still slag him off and beg for a manager who embodies Spursiness to come back and somehow save us. I think he's talking about Poch, is he? I don't know if that's true, that last line, because I don't think that's what. I'm assuming he's talking about Poch. I wouldn't say that's what he embodied. he embodied someone who dared to challenge the elites and dared to challenge the very top, and got to a Champions League final, got to many title challenges. It wasn't his fault that we failed. Yes, I understand what people say, like we did have a very, very good squad and that should have won something.
Didn't. We had a very good team.
Sorry, very good team. And those players should have won something, 100%. The fact that Harry never won anything, Son, Ericsson, Dele, Toby, Jan, Lloris, Walker, the fact that we had that team and they never won anything is a travesty. But I don't put it down to Poch. Why we obviously he had parts to blame, but I just don't think it was his fault that it never won a trophy.
But you look at teams that actually win things. Teams don't have a bench of Nkudus and Ngis and the guys that we had on the bench at the time.
Apart from Leicester.
Yeah, Leicester was a 1 in a million thing, but I think you're looking at every team that have won over the past 10, 15 years or whatever. You don't just have a starting 11. You have a whole squad and everyone that can muck in. So I don't think it was a surprise that we didn't win anything. I think it was unbelievable for him to actually get as far as he did in what he was trying to achieve. It's like so many semi-finals in the FA Cup, 2 title challenges and a Champions League final. Like he didn't have enough to get over the line, in my opinion.
He could have won a trophy.
Yeah, he could have won a trophy, but
team.
I'm talking about the big things, like going and winning the Premier League and going and winning the Champions League. He didn't have enough to win those big tournaments.
Yeah, 100%. And I think he did well to get as far as he did. And my only point is, I understand the argument. People say that team should have won a trophy. 100% he should have.
I hate the narrative that people call Poch a loser and he's this and he's that. It's like, he's not a loser. He took us to heights that we couldn't even have dreamt of getting to before he joined the club.
Yeah. And, I think, what was it? He had 2 third-place finishes, a second-place finish, 2 fourth-place, 1 fourth-place finish, a 5th-place finish, like consistently right there, challenging. And this is what I said about Poch at the time, and it's still so true. He normalised overachieving. And so that's kind of what we expect now from every manager, is to overachieve. Yeah. Because Poch was just able to do it every season.
Every Spurs team since Pochettino has always been kind of put against that Poch's Spurs team and the prime Poch Spurs team. And we just got to remember that team was a very special team, and it's going to take a lot of amazing recruitment to get back to those levels.
And so he normalised overachieving, so it's kind of what we expect from every manager. So when Mourinho only finishes 6th rather than top 4, we're blaming Mourinho. When Conte overachieved for 6 months, right, he got us to 4th, which was an overachievement. Right, and then that's what we expected, because if he could overachieve at that time, he could overachieve again. And then when Ange gets us 5th, we're like, yeah, but he could have got us 4th, even though that was an overachievement. Like, we're expecting all the managers to overachieve at this football club, and instead of just giving them the tools to actually compete, it's like, well, you can overachieve because these other guys have done it for a short amount of time. But Poch was the only one who could do it over a long stretch of time.
The thing is, with Poch coming back to this club now, why I think it's such a good appointment for us, because I don't think he's going to get us back to the levels of what he did prior to that, just because I don't think we can get as good enough first team as we did then. And obviously the level of competition now right at the top is a lot stronger than it was when Poch got there. But I think what he can do is just get us back on that right path again, get us back in those conversations for being a top 4 club, a top 5 club. Put an arm around these academy guys, nurture them, get a lot better football stylistically, and get better out of our forward players as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the people will be more on board with the football. I'm sure about that. I think there'll be some games where we're exciting with, pressing the life out of teams. And I think teams are a lot better, if I'm being honest, now than they were when he was managing in the Premier League. I think the middle teams are much better. I think the top teams are obviously more stable as well. So it's a different challenge now than when it was before. But we just need something we can all get behind. And I think he can get us back challenging for Europe again in the short term. In the long term, I don't know where I see him, to be honest. I don't know if he can ever get us back, as you say, challenging for the title like he was. I don't know if that's possible under him. But in the short term, he can just get us believing again that we can actually be a decent team. And that has been just so long now that we just nestle that. I think I'll take that.
I think if he's at Spurs for the next 4 years, I think he progressively gets us better and just competing for the European spots consistently. And I think that's just what the club need right now. Like, we're so far away from talking about the heights that he took us to last time. Like, we're so far away from that as a club. Like, at least like back then, you know, you just look at that team. Like, we're miles away from that. Miles.
And if he comes in, gets us back challenging for Champions League, and also maybe gets a trophy somewhere along the line, a domestic trophy or another European trophy.
That trophy will just mean so much.
That would be brilliant.
Yeah.
That's all I can ask for. Why can't he win a trophy? I know he didn't, but I don't see why he can't.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that is the comments, or is there more?
No, that's it.
All right, that is the way you reacted to the videos yesterday. But yeah, look, that is it from us